Advanced Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my conversation with Huan Zheng. Huan is a recent graduate in our Full-Time MBA Class of 2022, and she also completed the MBA Masters of Education dual degree during her time at Darden. As you'll note from this conversation, Huan and I connected towards the end of her second year, and we touch on a lot of topics in this wide-ranging conversation. Everything from her background and how she decided to pursue an MBA to what she discovered about herself and what she learned about networking during her time in Charlottesville. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here is my interview with Huan Zheng. Huan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. How are you doing? How's everything?
I'm doing great. A second year is the best year and Q4 the best quarter.
Well, quarter four is the quarter right before graduation. Is it a bittersweet time? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I know, it's feel like very complicated. I feel like, time has been fly so fast. We only have almost 1 month and a half left. And also I'm very excited for what's coming next. Yeah.
It's a lot of different emotions. You're right. We were recording this in late March. So you do have about another month and a half. One of the questions I always ask for folks, ask folks here on the podcast, as they approach the end of their time at Darden as a student, are there any bucket list items, anything that you feel like you have to do before graduation?
Yeah, good question. Actually, the other day I was asking my friends, any bucket list you have, you can share with me, and I don't want to miss anything. And I think one of the things that come to my mind is definitely check out. I want to do a hike in Shenandoah, the national park, because last spring we were not able to do that because it was also during COVID. So I was able to hike during the fall. It was amazing. And I really want to check it out during the spring. And also there are so many restaurants that I have to check out. And also so many things in Darden. I'm so excited for the incoming drag show or beach week. Oh my God, so many things that I'm excited for.
Well, that's a very full few weeks. You mentioned a hike in the Shenandoah, so there's national parks, just a short drive from Darden, from grounds, 20-25 minutes. You can be out in nature and doing a hike. There's also so many great restaurants. There's the drag show that you mentioned, and did you say a beach week as well?
Yeah. That's a graduation week that we have a 1 week of celebration on the beach. That's something very excited for our graduation.
Well, that's all right. You'll be on a beach, which sounds awful nice, and the timing of that be a little bit warmer outside than it is here in late March. We're still kind of transitional weather here in Virginia this time of year. It can be warm, it can be cold, it can be rainy, but come April, May, it'll be a nice time to be at the beach. So, well, thank you so much, Juan, for coming on the podcast, and so excited for you and your classmates as you work towards graduation. The end is near, but that is so exciting for all of you, I know. So let's talk a little bit more about you and your story. Tell us about you, where you're from, and what you did before coming to Darden.
Yeah, sure. My name is Huan Zheng. I'm originally from China. Currently, I'm doing a dual degree of MBA and Education Master program at Darden. So for people who probably don't know, actually, this is a really great dual degree program that we are able to accomplish 2 degrees in 2 years. So I'm also graduating in the same year as other MBA classmates. And so before Darden, I had 7 years working experience in China. So after my undergrad, I started working at JD.com, which is the biggest e-commerce platform in China. And then I helped two US company expanded their Chinese market. And even after that, I started my own startup, which was a education startup. We provided international experiential learning programs for Chinese K-12 students and executives. So very similar to the DWC trips, like Darden Worldwide Course trips. So we help Chinese schools organize these international trips. It was very fun. But as you may know, like COVID disrupted the whole international traveling business. So that's when I started to considering MBA.
Well, you're right that COVID disrupted all of that travel. It was the case for the past couple of years that it's been difficult to get out there and do Darden Worldwide courses, although those have recently resumed. Thinking about all the trips that happened over spring break. Did you have a chance to go on one of those?
Yes, I actually had the DWC trip to Finland and Estonia. I still remember for Darden application, one of the questions is, so which country would you like to go for the DWC trip? And at that time, I wrote Finland, and I was able to go there this year. So it was amazing, and it's really a very fantastic 7 days traveling with your classmates and professor. It was really great. And yeah, for people who probably don't know, DWC trip is a sponsored program for Darden. So everyone can go, like the school organize the trip. You only need to pay your tickets. Other things schools have been covered.
You're right. For full-time MBA students, there's the Batten Worldwide Scholarship, which for most students will cover the course fee for the course. There are some out-of-pocket expenses, but the Darden Worldwide courses are incredible. We had a number of trips go to Europe, and I think there's even some planning around, maybe even South America for some of the current upcoming trips. And so the world is starting to open up a little bit more. We're starting to get out there again. It was great to have students out in the world, and I will say, as the host of the podcast, I get to talk to people oftentimes coming back from these trips. I have a lot of envy of what people were able to do and just how much fun they had. How did you decide that you wanted to go to Finland? You mentioned that this is something you mentioned in the short answer question in the application. That question is still in the application. We still ask full-time MBA candidates who are applying, where in the world would you want to go? You can pick anywhere in the world. You said, I want to go to Finland, and you actually made it happen here in your MBA program. What about Finland?
Yeah, so I know I'm very passionate about education innovation, and I was applying for this dual degree program, and post MBA, I'm really want to pivot into education technology. So I'm choosing Finland because Finland has been famous for their very excellent education system and a lot of innovative ideas in Finland. So I really want to visit and get to know more about the innovative education innovations there, and also to learn from it. So that was why, what I put in my application, and I made it happen.
So you come to Darden to pursue your MBA, but I want to kind of go back to where you were. COVID hits. It's 2020. The world is shutting down. Obviously, your venture, it's much more difficult to operate global trips during that time. Impossible to travel. So you start thinking about an MBA. Was it just, here I am, I've got more time on my hands to think about this? What ultimately led you to say, this is the right degree? And actually, I don't want to just do an MBA. I'd like to do a dual degree too.
Yeah. I think I applied in August 2020 September. So that was before COVID. So I think after COVID, it's I'm very committed to, I'm coming to B school, but I actually applied before COVID happened. At that time, so I had this plan to come to MBA because I saw my business, the need for global expansion. So before COVID, we were already doing programs in the US, UK, and Southeast Asia countries. And so our business model was more like we're organizing the trip. So every time we will have someone fly from China to the place to facilitate the program. So I think it will really make sense for us to have like a team in the US, or like we were trying to focus on the US market, and I wanted to expand my business more in the US so that we can build a team there, local team here, and so that we will like we don't need to fly every time from China to the US. So that was like one of our my business need. So I actually applied earlier before COVID, and I got in. And I think because like COVID happened, I just feel like it makes more sense for me to come to business school and transfer my career, because I know my business probably is we were kind of in a like post period, like we didn't have any business after COVID. So yeah, that was a hard time, and I think it makes more sense for me to come to business school.
How did you land on the dual degree, combining the MBA and the Masters of Education?
Yeah, so I did the research first. I knew Darden has this dual degree program, so Darden was on my top targets because I know this program really fits me. And so I first applied Darden first. I applied in the early round, and I got admitted, and then I applied education school. It was like I think the December I applied to education school, and then I got in.
So what led you to Darden? Do you feel like it was the alumni? It was the sense of community? Were there other things that were on your mind as you were finalizing your MBA decision?
Yeah, so I think there's several reasons. One is definitely about this dual degree program that really fits my career goals. And a second is the community. I was able to connect with some people and really see how supportive the Darden community is. And another thing is actually about Charlottesville. So I was able to come here to interview in September 2020. At that time I was like, I have been in the West Coast for half a month, and then I had a long flight coming to Charlottesville, and I just feel like so fresh. The weather was so good, and then when I came to Darden, it was so beautiful, and I had such a good interview experience here, and I really feel like this is a good place for me to spend 2 years here, like build, like learn, really to dive deep into learning, and also have make friends with a lot, like very a close knit community. So I think that's like in personal experience helped me feel like Darden is the right school for me in terms of both of a career goals, community need, and also like the environment. The environment need, like yeah, the environment is really, I really like the environment here.
So you shared you're from China. It sounds like you'd spent time on the west coast of the United States as part of your venture. Imagine Charlottesville was a little different than where you'd lived previously and where you'd spent time previously. What was that adjustment like to being not only a new business school student, but finding yourself in a new environment, living here in Central Virginia?
Yeah. So yeah, as I was living in Beijing for like almost 11 years since my undergrad. And I think what I really miss about is about the access to nature. And this is something I really find very fulfilling in Charlottesville, the great access to nature. And also the setting of Darden, like everyone is living very close to Darden. Most of us living in Ivy Gardens, Pavilion, Huntington. And so like my neighbors are all my classmates. I just like this, the whole environment create so this creates an environment that everyone is so well connected. Like I can just easily go to my classmates, like hang out on their couch, and then we do class. We spend time, like after class, we can chat and we can discuss about some projects. And it's just like the whole environment is so close. It's so easy to foster close relationship with your friends. And also there is a great nature that provides us the opportunities to hike, to like enjoy the beauty of the nature.
You're right to note that Darden has several apartment complexes which are quite popular with students that are less than a mile away. And I think this is one of these things that it functionally is like a residential program, in that, people are basically living as close to grounds as you can get, and being by virtue of being at least in their first year in one of these apartment complexes. It's one of the things that may not necessarily occur to all of our podcast listeners, that most of the first year students at Darden, walking distance to grounds, can be on grounds very, very quickly, very easily. It's one of I think, the things that helps further reinforce the community at Darden.
Yeah, definitely. I like it's and also we had so many, even during because even last year it was during COVID, it was really harder to have many in-person events. But because we are living very close, and we were still able to come up with some like events, which was really impressive. For example, we had like this 100 case party. Which is, Darden is case study. And for first year, we have a tradition for 100 case. After we finish in 100 case, we will gonna throw a big party to celebrate that. But because COVID, we cannot have in-person events. But the second years we were able to come up with we did like a outdoor, like they had some case tables placed in different places of Ivy Gardens. So it's more like a case fair. We were just visit different tables in Ivy Gardens and then celebrate the accomplishment of 100 case. That was like a blast. Yeah.
Lots of creativity during that time. I think about your class and anybody in a class of 2022 or 2021, if you want to go back a little ways. Kind of two separate experiences that you had when you first showed up. Kind of think about that period of time, maybe pre-vaccine, what that looked like for folks in terms of the ability to get groups of people together, to be indoors together, just much more complicated to do all of those things. So classes, there were in-person opportunities for students, but there was also students participating in classes virtually. Social events were much harder. Club and organization activities much harder. But this year, things have, we resumed normal operations. It's been possible for students to get together more easily, to be in person for these classes. I feel like a lot of progress over the past couple of years, but it's certainly been a process as we've collectively navigated COVID here at the university. Juan, I want to come back to your MBA story here at Darden. And so you mentioned you chose the school for community and access to nature and these kinds of things. So you come as a brand new first year student. You're in the United States, you're living in Charlottesville, and you're doing business school. What was that adjustment like?
So it was actually quite challenging for me to come to the US, because that time at that time the embassy in China was not open. So I actually went to UK to get my US visa to come to the US. So I came to the Darden a little bit late. It was like, and I quarantined 2 weeks before coming to Darden. So I came to Darden at the end of September. But at that time we have hybrid, so I was able to join these online classes. And so when I first came, I finally come to the place that I came 1 year ago. And the very interesting thing is that I came like the same week as my interview week in Darden. And so it was the same season. When I came out of the Charlottesville airport, I saw there is a big board about Darden, like post say "Welcome home." Oh, that was what I saw 1 year ago, and I feel so touched like when I came here, because it was like such a complicated process for me to come here. And wow, that was like most things I remember very clear. And then I came here, a lot of classmates I already know, they welcomed me, and I was so happy to see them in person, like when we're having this hybrid class, like when it was my turn to go to the hybrid classes in person, I was able to see some of my classmates in person, and it was great. Yes, and after that, I think first year was very intense. I didn't expect how intense it was. like first 2 quarters, we were like busy with recruiting. And for me at that time, it was quite challenging because I didn't really stop my business. So I was still having weekly meetings with my co-founder and trying to figure out what we should do. And eventually we decided kind of like stop the business at the end of 2020. So that 2 quarters was quite intense. But I think life got much better in Q3 and Q4 for my first year, as I got to know more people and getting used to the case study, and also settled down with my internship. So I was able to enjoy life more.
You're right that the core it's
Mhm.
a part of a process for folks. Darden, we talked about it here on the podcast. There's no real easing in to the experience. You kind of put in the deep end and you figure it out. You've got a lot of resources, but I do think those first few quarters, you're doing a lot. You're also, new to the social environment and trying to make connections socially. As a Darden student, you also have recruiting going on. So there's a lot that students are balancing, or trying to prioritize, I think is probably the better way to say, during that period. And you mentioned the hybrid structure of classes. There was the rotation for students to give everybody an opportunity to be in person, but we could only get 20 to 25 people in person because of the social distance requirement in the classrooms. This is pre-vaccine. If you go back to fall of 2020 and spring of 2021. So we're obviously in a different place now as a community, but that was what was worked out to give students an opportunity to be in person in the full-time program during those early I guess months of COVID. So you navigate all of that, and you get to your internship. Tell us a little bit about what you did in the summer after your first year.
Yeah, so for internship, I went to Amazon. So I was intern on their. I was an intern of the retail leadership development program. So I was a vendor manager. I became a vendor manager on the premium beauty team and in charge of like almost like 300 brands with over 6,000 SKUs. So that was like a very challenging task. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Like I was able to use a lot of skills I learned during MBA program, especially in the data analytics skills. And also, like I was really impressed by the whole how Amazon do business e-commerce in the US. So because I had the e-commerce background in China, so I kind of very familiar with the whole e-commerce landscape ecosystem in China. So I can see that there's very different e-commerce philosophies in, like, the market is different in here, and how Amazon does business is so different from Chinese e-commerce. So I really appreciate the exchange to learn about the e-commerce in the US.
Well, you come back for your second year, and you already said at the start of this conversation, second year has been the best year. And I'm curious, what was it like to be a second year student? Of course, you're a dual degree student, so you got a lot on your plate from a school standpoint. Was it tough, trying to do two programs at the same time? I mean, tell us a little bit more about your second year.
Yeah. So for my second year, I do have more education course. This dual degree program is very considerate of first year, so that we can focus on the recruiting or Darden. So we had more classes in the second year, and we also had 3 classes before Darden started. So I actually started education school earlier. So I had 3 classes during the summer of 2020. I think I really enjoyed it because, like, for Darden, it's more case study based. Like, we have a lot of discussions. For my education program, it's more, I would say it's more academic. So I was able to read more papers and do more reading, writings related with goes deeper into the education series. That's exactly what I wanted to learn, and I think this is a really good combination. And actually, as dual degree, I don't need to take as many classes as Darden students. So normally, Darden students have to accomplish 60 credits which is about like 40 classes in 2 years, first year 20 and second year 20 classes. So for me, I was only needed to accomplish 2.5 credits overall at Darden. So yeah, it's totally manageable. And so from the learning part, I think it's manageable. From the other part, I think second year is really good is that after we really, I think through the whole year experiencing first year, I finally become more clear about my career, about what I want to do in the future. So in the second year, actually, I pivoted into recruiting based venture capital. So I'm still recruiting, and I really enjoy this process of I'm so dedicated to the things I want to learn, and I'm network with people, and there's so much supportive Darden alumni, and I just enjoyed all the conversations I had with people. I think it's much better than first year conversations, because now I feel I really more enjoy the networking process than my first year. And as from a social perspective, I know my classmates and a lot of people. I feel so good to get to know them more personally, because in the second year we were able to have more in person. It's much better now, so we have more events here, and so I really appreciate the opportunities to getting to know people better. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your career interests, because that's a pretty big pivot. So you were doing e-commerce for Amazon, your summer internship. You are a dual degree student in the master's, the MBA and the Master's of Education dual degree, and now you're interested in venture capital. So talk us through how you landed on venture capital is where you would like to go post MBA.
Yeah. So as how to say, I think it's like the Darden. One is I got the exposures to venture capital through Darden. Like some of my classmates were recruiting in venture capital, and they shared with me their experience during the summer. And I found it was very interesting. As an entrepreneur, I think always my end goal is to continue doing business. Either it's in I think ideally I want to do in education, in entrepreneurship. So I was trying to figure out what's my next step is trying to build my credibility, or enhance my skills, or build the connections in the industry. And I found a venture capital really good step for me in terms of to understand the whole market of educate. Ideally, I want to get into education technology VC. So I found a VC can really help me to understand the market, and also build my this marketing insights, and also create help me to get exposure, connections with entrepreneurs, learn from their ideas, and also another thing is help me build the connections. I think this through this year and my connection with my chats with other people who has been to venture capital give me the inspired me to say, okay, this is another opportunity. And then I realized actually it's a really good fit to me, and I want to try it out. And I think Darden, and also for MBA, it's amazing. It's they give us the opportunity to try different things, and I just want to take the risk to do the things that I want to do. I want to try out. Yeah.
Well, a question for you related to a comment you made earlier about networking, how networking has been as a second year student versus networking as a first year student. Do you want to share a little bit more about your feelings here, and why it may feel a little bit easier as a second year student versus what it felt like as a first year student?
Yeah. So one is, I think during my first year, I was following more I know I needed to network, but I didn't really know how. I know after a certain info session, you're supposed to write to connect with people who came to the info session and then write thank you letters and ask their experience. But I was lacking of this motivation, or why I was networking. I just know it was required. So I guess that's like a mindset that it was like I think I didn't really fully understand the value of networking. And so I was like, networking was a burden to me, especially as an international student. There is language barrier, cultural barrier. I feel like I always like criticize myself, say, oh, I didn't say that same well. And I feel like my question was stupid. Like I didn't ask a good questions like that. I think that's kind of like, I lack that kind of confidence to network too. So for the second year, I think the change is that one is I know why I needed to network. And I really value the conversations, what I can learn from other people based on their experience, or like building a positive like relationship with people. And I'm more like curious. I think probably like fundamentally the change is like I know what I want to do more clearly. Like I'm very more committed to education technology, venture capital. And I'm like, so I want to talk to people like all the questions. I think it comes more naturally. I know this is like a genuine, I want to know more about this. So I like questions is not a harder part for me to think about. And then the second, I think is also the confidence. So I think Darden the first year, through such an intense case study program, that really improved my confidence in learning, in speaking up. Like I think overall, I just become more confident in myself. What like I can conquer, what challenges I can conquer, what I can do. Yeah.
I would imagine having to speak in class, having to speak about things you don't have direct experience with, having to participate in this way, it would be a way to practice a lot of these skills that are not only relevant for networking, but also for your job, where you're going in your career. Was that something that was helpful to you, the fact that a class has this participatory aspect to it?
Yeah, I think the class really help a lot. So one is like overall our class is very so one we are case driven. So a lot of times we nerd during in the class, like a lot of like analysis we have conducted about the classes can really applicable to our recruiting, the whole recruiting process. If we definitely we touched so many cases, and the framework and the ideas are really helpful when we're trying to, like when I'm right now looking for firms whether I should invest in it, the things I learned in the class very helpful. And second is about the practice. So our class is very student centered, so everyone get opportunities to speak. And I think that's going back to my earlier point, that really helped us to build the confidence to speak up, to like how to frame your idea, how to share, like how to frame your like answers. Yeah, I think that was really helpful.
A question for you, just coming back to networking one more time, because I do think this is an important conversation for many of our international students. It's not, and even for our domestic students, it's not clear like what role networking plays, why it's important. You did a great job noting that it can be hard if English isn't necessarily your primary language. It can also be hard because there's cultural differences, how people in other countries find jobs versus how that works in an MBA environment in the United States. And there's also, I think people sometimes wonder, like, well, what am I supposed to talk with them about? What am I supposed to say? What does this look like? It can feel in people's minds like it might be super transactional. And in fact, it's really about building relationships. But I wonder what shifted for you? Was it just more experience as a business school student, or was there a light bulb moment, a moment where you said, I get it now. Networking makes a lot more sense.
That's a good question. I think Yeah, it's not probably not the exact moment, probably like several conversations made me realize how interesting people are and how like helpful our Darden alumni are. And then we realized not so afraid of networking. And and also like I think it's like several conversations, really good conversation that helped me to realize that I can also be helpful to them because I'm not like asking, like not just asking, but I can also help offer some insights I had from like about Chinese market, about my previous entrepreneurship. And I realized, oh, actually I can offer help. So I think that's a shift of mindset. And so sometimes when I'm going to network, I'm always been like have been to be more grateful, and I know I will give back in the future. So I always let people know, like, let me know anything I can help. Probably not right now, but in the future, I will always add that sentence in at the end of our conversations because I'm really thinking about that. Like I want to give it back. So I think that also helped a little bit. And and I think another thing is also about like getting back to the fundamentals. So when I was in China, was speaking my main language, I was like really like very. I have a lot of friends. I'm genuinely curious in strangers. I was able to make friends anytime, anywhere. But when I came to the US, I think at early beginning, I was like afraid of my language and afraid of like always trying to be in right. I always trying to be good, yeah, like have a good impression. But later on, I realized that the language is like communication is not about language. Communication is really about your purpose, your attitude, and also about your points. So I will try to focus more on the fundamentals. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, I will be more grateful in the conversation. And also I think it as like a mutual help. I will try to give back in the future. And also I will do more research. I'm just genuine into okay, if I'm going to talk with someone, I will spend a lot of time to really think about the questions I'm gonna ask and to make sure that the time will be well spent for both of us. So I think that mindset is because I was so grateful for people's time, and then I was more willing to spend the time to do research. And then that kind of gradually changed like the quality of the conversations and made me become more confident of networking and enjoy networking more.
You're right. That homework, learning about the person that you're speaking with, learning about their industry, their firm, what they do. I do think it gives you a lot more context for that conversation, and it will push the conversation in a higher quality to a higher quality. All really good tips. Your point around like wanting to be perfect at everything is one that I think a lot of students in business school struggle with that in a lot of different ways. You have high achieving, very successful folks. They come to an academic environment, to a new community where they're surrounded by similar folks, and and you can't be perfect all the time. And everybody is sort of navigating business school for the first time. When you think about your own journey, whether it's with language or as a business school student, where you are now versus where you were when you began, what's been the impact of the experience? Where do you see the growth for yourself?
Yeah, I think so much growth during this 2 year. I think one is fundamentally becoming more confident in what I can do, and like I think it's like confident about myself, also confident about how things gonna turn out. I think these are two, like confidence both internally and externally. So this is so like I think a lot of like students why they become so anxious was they're always worrying bad things gonna happen. I'm not gonna have a job, or I'm not gonna have the perfect job. But when you frame another way, it's like I'm eventually gonna have a job, or I eventually will get to where I want to be. So you needed to trust the process, trust what how things will turn out, then you will feel more confident to do what things matter. But if you always worrying about like the externally, like the bad situations, then you will become more, let's say, anxious, like FOMO. And yeah, I think that's a key change of mindset and also attitude. And I think a second is like the understanding about like diversity. This is something I don't really fully like have much exposure when I was in China, because everyone is very similar and we share the same culture and a lot. But when I came to the US, I definitely had more, like, even though I came to the US a lot before MBA, but I didn't have such a deeper experience talking with people from different background, understand their different beliefs and the way they like to do things, that they like to hang out with people, like the different cultures, different the like foods. So I think that that's like really I think a big growth to me, because when you started to realize the diversity, or like how to say, like, I think that helped me to become more creative. I learned so much from people who are different from me. I say, oh, these are different things, different ways of approach, different ways of thinking about things, and different ways of like present yourself. So I think the diversity make the understanding and the understanding of diversity makes me become more creative. Actually, I think that's a really a big growth. Yeah. And not to mention like other growth in my learning, in my like in my career. I think, yeah, there's so much things I really appreciate.
Well, your point about your outlook on the world, how you're viewing things, and why that's important for business school students. We've talked a lot here on the podcast about the importance of being clear about your priorities, knowing what's most important to you, the idea that in business school, you can get pulled in a lot of different directions. There's a tendency to compare yourself to other people. But if you can just focus on the metaphor that a lot of students use is run your race. That race is your own. It's not anybody else's. Your priorities are not other students' priorities. But you have added a really important dimension, is that you can't judge everything by a particular outcome. And you can't say, well, this is, I don't have this or that or the other thing. To know that you are on a journey to that thing, that the input, the process is what ultimately, one, you can control. And then two, you can also control how you look at things. So if you're going to say, well, I don't have this and I haven't achieved that, well, that's one way to look at it. And that's going to cause you to be upset and anxious and all these kinds of things. But if you can say, like, look, I'm in the process of figuring this out. I have all these resources. I have people to help me. I'm learning as I go. I'm growing. And I'm excited about what's happening for me. That's a very different way to approach that.
I think this change really, like right now, for example, right now, I haven't decided a full-time job yet, and I'm still recruiting. And I think most people probably if like standing in the early beginning of 2020, I feel like this would be a disaster if I don't have a job before graduation. But right now, I just feel like really, really good about this, because I know what I want to do, and I know I'm on the way. I'm working on the things that I think will be helpful to get to where I want to be. And I know this is a process, and I'm not afraid, and I'm so proud of that. And I think this change, this like right now, how I am perceive things is really what I feel like good about myself. And also this is, I think, what I have learned and what I have like changed me to become so, yeah. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, I think this is a good example about the growth, the change I have been through. Yeah.
I imagine when you thought about an MBA program, when you thought about doing a dual degree program, you might not have been contemplating this much personal growth. You probably thought a lot about career and education, what you're learning, but the self-work, what you're doing for yourself personally, has that been surprising to you?
Yeah. it's just I think it's a surprise how much progress I made. I know I wanted to through this MBA, I want to improve myself in terms of like skill sets, in terms of like mindsets, and also like not the hard skill, both soft skills, but like this whole personal growth in terms of like attitude, in terms of how I see things. It's something I can see beyond of my expectation. Like I feel like I've overachieved in terms of my earlier goals. So yeah.
Well, Juan, thank you for your candor and for your vulnerability and for being so open with our listeners about your journey. It's been great hearing your insights about where you started to where you are now. I wonder if you have a final piece of advice you would share with our listeners, something that's on your that you would say this is something you should think about as you start on your MBA journey.
Yeah. Okay. So looking back, I will highly recommend the people to think over their path or their goals in MBA. I know we have a failed application. We read so much things about during our application, but most of us like we think different from the application. So I really highly recommend the people to do research, to talk with people, to have conversation with yourself, to know, say, what do I really want to do post MBA? So use or like try to do more like conversation think about from the end perspective. Like don't take MBA as a 2-year investment, take it as a 10 years investment. What eventually you want to be in 10 years, and then think about what you should do in the 2 years. It can include with like, oh, you should pivot into investment banking or consulting. That's like it's one piece of your goal. Another goal is like personally, like what kind of a transformation you have to go through to in order to become like a entrepreneur in 10 years or general managers or in 10 years or become a great leader in 10 years. And I know like it's gonna be hard, but you have to believe in once you ask yourself more questions, once you start to talk with more people, the answers will gradually come to you as long as you try to take a step. So, and I highly recommend to take CDY seriously. We have this CDY modules that help you to do self-reflection, think about your career goals. And it was a really good program. And it's not mandated. Like a lot of people didn't spend enough time on it. So, but I highly recommend it to follow the process and to try to fill in all the things they asked during the CDY program. Yeah.
Juan, this has been so much great advice. So we've always encouraged listeners to remember that the job search process is not just what plays out in the first year when you're looking for your internship, that it's, it can encompass your full 2 years. That's pretty steady advice from second year students who come here on the podcast. Know that your interests may continue to evolve, but knowing what you want to do, doing that reflection before you start the program, really engaging with these questions, it can be really helpful to you, particularly early on in the program where students can oftentimes feel pulled in a lot of different directions from a career standpoint. And it can be really easy to follow the crowd and get, again, kind of, I'm here and here and here, and that can cause some stress for students. So that reflection, I really appreciate the shout out for CDY. But the other thing that you shared that I really think is powerful for people is don't just think about it as 2 years. Think about it as a longer term investment, not just where you're going to be at graduation, but 5 years, 10 years. How is this helping you advance that plan? We do ask about short-term and long-term goals, but it is worth extending that time horizon beyond just where am I on graduation or within a few months of graduation. So Juan, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming here on the podcast and for sharing such great advice with our listeners.
Yeah, thank you for having me. If like any listeners, prospective students want to talk about Darden, feel free to reach out, search me on LinkedIn, and send me a message. I'm happy to chat.
And that was my interview with Huan Zheng, a recent graduate from our Full-Time MBA Class of 2022. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, We're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, at virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.